Well, hello again, everybody. Welcome back to Backstage Bimbo TV. For those of you who don't know or are just stumbling across my channel, my name is Allison Rouse. I am a notorious groupie and author of We've Got Tonight, Life and Times of Notorious Groupie, me. I'm best known for being the woman that was with John Entwistle the night he died in Las Vegas. But before that, I was known for many other bands. So if you're just stumbling across, why don't you go ahead and Google me or check the links down in my bio. I have my book there, I've got my merchandise links there, and a lot of other stuff. Spent 30 years in rock and roll. This book is only about 17 years of it. I kind of don't go past 2002 when John died in the book, even though me as a groupie, I went way before and beyond that. Longer than any other groupie in history, and don't believe old hags because I am not a liar. What you get in this book is all me. I walked away from the best book offers in the history of groupie books, and an awesome agent to stay true to my voice and do this by myself. So these vlogs are kind of a way to promote my book and let you guys really know who I am, because sometimes when you're writing a book, who you really are does not come across, because we're all reading with our own personalities and moods. You know what I mean? So this way you can see me more, my personality better, and I appreciate everybody who has supported me, who has subscribed to the channel, who's bought the book, who's been really awesome to me over the years. Julianne, Deborah, Erica, Christina, there's Tina, Nicole, who has really gone out of her way to share everything and try and help promote me. I mean, and if I'm forgetting people, I'm truly sorry. Sorry, Rachel, Mandy, Diana, or Dee Dee. Everybody has been cool and supported me. If I forgot, I'm sorry that I forgot your name, but truly, I thank everybody for your support. So if you're just stumbling on, kick back, folks, because these stories are good. They're stories you read about in Rolling Stone, other music publications, stuff like that over the years. But they've never had anybody actually that was there talk about them. And today, speaking of rock and roll historical moments, we're going to talk about a little band. You might have heard of these guys. Kind of from Scotland, kind of from Australia, kind of ACDC. And we're also going to talk about something that happened to this band that was an incredible historical moment for them. We're not only going to talk some sex, drugs, and rock and roll about ACDC, we're going to talk about the night 3 kids were killed here in Salt Lake City during a show. I write about this in my book, but there's a little detail that I leave out in the book, because as a groupie, we protect the boys. We protect our own. And this day, when I wrote the book, I was still protecting ACDC. But Brian Johnson has recently wronged me. You don't protect me, I don't protect you. Plain and simple. Okay? So, and we do cocktails here for these rocktails because they're so much fun. And I go surfing the internet to find stupid little names like Pink Panties and stuff. And today it's called Highway to Hell, because it's ACDC, and well, that day of the show was total hell. So grab your Highway to Hell, kick your feet up, and let's have some story time, shall we? Cocktails and rocktails, folks. Cheers, big ears. Okay, so this is, let's see. This was January of 1991. How could I forget? January 9th, I believe, was the day of the show. So the band was in town the night before. We knew the production manager, me and my friends. So we're going to talk about the night before right now, because it was crazy and wild, as it can get sometimes in rock and roll. But I just moved out with a roommate, Kim, so she's going to make an appearance, which is pretty awesome. I love Kim. She's a hippy-dippy chick, was really awesome and cool. Anyway, so Kim, Danny, and I, we head up to the Marriott downtown Salt Lake City, as we always do. Wander in, come across the production manager, Jake, and I believe Malcolm, and they were going out to dinner. And as we're talking to them, we're watching Brian and Angus go into the hotel bar. Even though, Angus isn't much of a drinker or anything, but where do the rock stars always gather to this day? Everybody says my book is so repetitive because every story does begin in the hotel bar and ends up in the hotel bedroom. So, like I always say, it's what in between that counts. And in between my legs tonight, I wanted Cliff Williams. I love that bass player. And I had been around ACDC before, but I was with James Lomenzo. It was when White Lion, who I just recently vlogged about, was opening up for ACDC. I guess I have a thing for bass players, huh? James Lomenzo, John, now Cliff Williams. They're all kind of friends, too. Groupies are awesome. We're such cool chicks, most of us. So anyway, now there was another girl, Cammie, that used to hang out with us. And she was one of those types that's a total frenemy. She could be fun and cool to hang out with, but if she got insecure or jealous, this complimentary insults came out. We all know someone like that. So we kind of ditched her because, rock and roll's not about that. We're just here to have a good time, enjoy the vibe, not be jealous, not be assholes. Just be cool and hang out and go with the flow of the moment. That's rock and roll. That's the beauty of it. So we hadn't talked to her for a while. So when Kim and Danny and I wandered in, we were stopping talking to Jake and to Malcolm, and they're like, yeah, you guys better be here when we get back. Of course we're going to be here when you get back. We're groupies. That's what we do. We're here for the band. And all of a sudden, as Kim and Danny and I are heading towards the bar at the Marriott, the hotel bar, from behind me I hear, "Hey, Allison." That's a girl's voice. Don't know who that is because when you're in rock and roll, there are almost no girls around. The only women are around are either wives, girlfriends, or groupies. Back then in the 80s, a female roadie was few and far between, and they were mostly wardrobe girls. So to hear a woman's voice calling me across the lobby, I'm like, who, what? So I turn around, and there's Cammie. And, okay, cool, everybody's invited to the party to see what kind of night they can have. But I really, like I said, we've all felt this way, so don't trash me for this, but I just really didn't want to be around her and have the night dampened. Well, I just, be nice, talking to her. And then she says this, she's like, she's got some big, huge guy that we knew as a yellow jacket, the local security at the Salt Palace, kind of hovering behind her. And she's like, oh, aren't you going to ask me how I'm doing? Because, I'm pregnant. And I do write about this in my book, and people give me crap for it. Don't give me crap, because anybody would have had the same reaction I did. I just say it out loud. Because what is a groupie doing? She was not really a groupie. She just kind of was the hanger-on with the rest of us groupies. But what is she doing in a hotel lobby pregnant with, I assume, the big baby daddy father hanging around? That to me was just, and we all would have thought the same thing. So don't get mad at me for saying I thought it was tacky. And plus I didn't really want to be around her. So, Danny and Kim are just like slinking off, even though Danny knew her. And Danny was like, congratulations, bye. They leave me to deal with this. And you guys know by now, I'm not as subtle as I like to pretend to be. So I was just like, well, yeah, congratulations. You guys, you should probably get home now that you're a pregnant woman, shouldn't you? Have a good night. We'll talk to you later. And Jake and Malcolm are still watching. They haven't walked out the door because their cab wasn't there yet. So they're kind of watching this. And as I'm walking, I was like, okay, bye. And I walked by. I'm like, all right, Jake, we'll see you guys when you get back. And Jake's like, yeah, you're about as subtle as me. And now Jake is known in the business. He is the top production manager in the world. Like, he goes to every top tour and handles, like, on YouTube, it'll be 3 different road crews because it takes a week to build that stage. So they have 3 different road crews leapfrogging each other. And if Jake has to fire someone, he is notorious for saying one thing. Would you like a window seat or an aisle? Best way ever. So, this is Jake, and that's what he meant by you're about as subtle as me. It wasn't subtle at all. So we make our way into the hotel bar, start hanging out. We see Brian and Malcolm and a couple other roadies that we know. So, of course, we just go over, we're drawn to our gypsy family. So, just the magnets. We go over, sit down, start talking, introduce ourselves. Like I said, they have seen me before, so they kind of know who we are. And back then, rockers knew which groupies were in which city. Gmail was not Google Mail. It wasn't what we know now. It was groupie mail. When faxes first came about, different bands would fax each other at the hotels which groupies to look for in which city. So we had a bit of promotion before. And like I said, I had been around ACDC before. So we're just hanging out, having a good time. Jake comes back and he brings Cliff Williams. Mama likes her bass player. Because he's hot. Probably the hottest one. And he's taller than me. Because all the guys in ACDC, like Brian, Malcolm, Angus, and no offense, they're just short. They're like 5'2", 5'3", 5'4". So, when I'm in bed, I want a guy who's not so localized. Or do I? I'll have to think about that one. ACDC is touring, but yeah, no. Not after Brian's bullshit. So anyway, we're hanging out. Cliff comes in, sits down, we're talking. Danny and Kim are making their little friendships and hooking up for the night and having a good time. And we're just all having a blast laughing. Cliff and I are getting along. I'm like, good, we're going to be together. Somebody decides they want Coke. And my old neighbor Montrese loves this story because I had to call her. I was, she was my downstairs neighbor at the time. I'm like, hey, can you get us some Coke? It's for ACDC. Oh, fuck yeah. So she gets herself ready, goes, grabs a Coke, meets us back at the hotel, and we all go upstairs. Because, as much as people like to think it's all rock star, like that movie Rockstar in the 80s, we're not chopping cocaine on the hotel bar. So we go upstairs, we move the party, we're drinking, we're doing Coke and stuff, we're having a good time. Just like you do the night before. It's just your typical night before. I go to bed with Cliff. There you go. Do you want to know what he was like in bed? Do you want to know what the size of his cock? Then you got to come over to my Patreon and hear all about it there. Because, yeah, got to leave something to the imagination on Patreon. All right. So anyway, we do the cocaine, we go to bed. And if you have ever tried to sleep on cocaine, not happening. So Cliff and I were just kind of tossy-turny all night, and I just kind of woke him up at 6 o'clock. I don't think he was sleeping. I was just kind of tapped him. I'm like, hey, I'm going to go home, go to bed, see if I can get some sleep there. Bye. Just left. Didn't even think about it. He already had my name, because when you're sleeping with someone with the band or the road crew, which is good, it's fine to date the road crew too, guys. Don't listen to the old groupies who are like, I would never sleep with the road crew. Well, that makes you a starfucker, sweetie. Because in rock and roll, we're all living the same life. If you just happen to have chemistry and there's a hot roadie, oh, fuck yeah, baby. I'm there. I've dated a couple. Aaron. Chris, yeah. My friend Oris is cool. He's dated 3 of my friends. I've never dated Oris, but he's one of my best friends to this day. So never discount the road crew, guys, just because you think you're too good for that. We're all sleeping in the same hotel, aren't we? Yeah. So anyway, everybody's hooking up, and I had to leave because I just couldn't get comfortable in this bed. And, the sex you'll hear about on Patreon. But I leave at 6 o'clock in the morning. Go back home. Try and get a couple hours of sleep. Danny and Kim come back. We all get ready. We go back to the gig. And we go to Will Call. That's usually our first stop, depending on what time of day it is. Because, we've got our tickets and passes to pick up. Unless we're going over to the gig with the guys, and they get us our passes when we get there. So anyway, we go to Will Call. Keep this in mind for the rest of the night. And I'm also going to tell you something right now that I don't put in the book because, like I said, I was protecting my gypsy tribe. these guys may not be very close to me as like maybe Metallica or Steve Jones or Vinnie Paul. You know, all those guys were and mean more to me than ACDC. But, you know, family is family, and there's a road family. I'm old school. You protect your family. And as Danny and Kim and I were standing there getting our passes, the local promoter comes in and tells the ticket girl at will call that they are releasing 900 more general admission tickets over fire code. He didn't say over fire code. No. He just told her, we're going to be releasing, so if people want to, you know, da-da-da-da-da, we're going to have more last minute before the show. And she was like, but that's over fire code. Even the ticket girl was, that's how I realized it was over fire code, because we all heard this. And so did another friend of ours who came later. The same ticket girl was talking about this 900 tickets over fire code. And in my book, I say it was purely J.C. McNeil. But in reality, what I don't say is for any promoter to release 900 more tickets over, they would have to have permission from the band. So I'm pretty sure they did this night. I cannot guarantee it, but I can assume it because of how long. I could sit in a production office and tell you how the night's going to go. And I can wrestle with some of the bigger boys like Jake can. I've had to. They've come and got me. Not Jake, but a couple people to handle business. You know, because like I said, you're a groupie on the road. You learn this life. You know this life like the back of your hand. So the back of my hand tells me 99% of the time the band needs to approve any extra tickets released. So, you know, we don't mind this. We kind of go on about our way. We go into the arena, walk, say hello to everybody, to the road crew guys. I say hello to Cliff. We're hanging out backstage. It's time to go on stage. You know, every band needs about 15-20 minutes to kind of get in their headspace, to get themselves going, to put the rock star on, you know, to get that facade, get in the mood. Just, it's rock and roll foreplay. So we go out and we're watching King's X on the side of the stage, because they were around us the night before too. Like this, if you see my autograph, oh, it's stuck to the pass. If you see my autograph, this is the drummer from King's X. And the video, it says the skunk didn't spray, because the video, there's a skunk wandering around the band who's around a fire camp. So that's kind of the joke. So we're out there watching King's X because we like King's X. And what we notice is the crowd is, even during King's X, it was unusually heaving. And this is the only way I can describe it. Up against that yellow steel rail that separates the crowd and the stage, and all the yellow jackets stand there. And keep this in mind, because a yellow jacket guy local security did an interview on MTV afterwards. First of all, the guy was nowhere near the motherfucking stage, so he doesn't know. Second of all, he's like, I was trying to get their head of security. No, you weren't. You came running out of backstage and grabbed Danny, one of the groupies. You didn't talk to anybody in the band, boy. And he was not in the middle of that crowd. He came out after to help pull the bodies out. Not bodies, but pull people out. Because what we noticed is usually when you're at a concert and the FOH board, the soundboard that's out in the middle of the crowd, if you ever notice, it kind of like, the crowd dissipates right about then. And it's pretty much empty to the back of the arena where the doors are. Well, that's fire code. They have to have this space in case anything happens, as it has in the past at, you know, what was the Rolling Stone concerts, Montague or whatever, and the Who's concerts, Metallica and Guns N' Roses, stuff like this happens. So they need to leave a little space, and plus, when the crowd surges, there's going to be a way to push back, or, you know, there's not going to be a need for a surge. But so tonight, because of that 900 tickets over fire code, the general admission, it was packed all the way back to the doors leading into the floor of the arena. So we're watching this from King's X, and we're kind of noticing this, and they're already pulling kids out at this point. Because I remember seeing a blonde girl. She was probably 5'4", and back then, and sometimes I think people still do this, guys will stand with their girls in front of them at the railing so that they have a good view and they can have that front and put their hands out to, you know, create a barrier so the crowd surging behind keeps their girl safe. Guys couldn't even do that. This poor little girl, her skinny little rocker boyfriend, just his arms buckled. The crowd was, I remember her looking at that security guard saying, "Help me." And it was, I mean, people give me crap because they're like, "Well, you could have described this more." I can't. I can tell you what happened, but I can never describe the feeling and what we were actually seeing. Unless you were there, you will never get it. And I'm describing it the best that I can. Like I said, I remember seeing this blonde girl just begging for help, and guys, mostly guys, were being pulled out. You know, girls were being pulled out, but there was a lot of guys at the front of that stage. Tall guys, big guys, it didn't matter. And this was happening at King's X. The security guard also said that the band was playing for a good 10 to 20 minutes before they stopped the show. And no, not at all. Like I said, they might have misconfused everything because there was already people being pulled out of the crowd during the opening band. So the opening band gets done. You know, the security is trying to figure out what to do. They're trying to get everybody back up. There's someone on the stage already before ACDC gets up there, telling everybody to back up. Well, they thought it was handled, and simply because during intermission between the opening and the headliner band, there's always that surge of people that goes upstairs to go to the bathroom, to grab a beer, grab some food, grab the merchandise, whatever. So about a third of the arena is gone. So it kind of made a false comfort zone that, okay, we can see everybody's kicked back. And plus, when you're in between the headliner and the opening act, everybody's just milling about, you know, making space, breathing. When the concert starts, everybody surges forward. So this is what happens. So ACDC comes out and say, "Now play a good show. You know, we're all standing there. We have drinks, whatever we're doing. Go, Cliff." Give him a big old kiss before he goes onto the stage. Grab his cock, because... Anyway, they go on the stage. And I'm going to post a link to Brian after the first song, where it's an audio link here on YouTube, where you can hear him telling, "Could you guys please move back up." And this was after the first song. Like I said, there's been reports saying that it was 15, 20, sometimes 45 minutes. There was no way. It wasn't even, it was one song, and about a minute into the second song, that literally the dam broke. So the report saying the band played for 45 minutes, 20 minutes, that's just simply not true. All this just started going on during the opening band, so I can see how people could misconstrue it. So the band goes out on stage. You know, we're used to seeing some people pulled out of the front row during a concert because you get squished, people get excited, they get moshing, people need to make room for the mosh pit, whatever. So during the first song, I don't even remember looking at ACDC. I just remember watching the front row. I mean, here's the big speaker that you guys see the front of. I'm seeing the back of it. So I just remember looking down, and just, you could see even more people being pulled out, like twice as many people, because the crowd surged. And even the band, and I'm not sure how aware the band was at this point, but I'm pretty sure they might have been aware that there was a crowd. I mean, they had to approve that 900 tickets, so yeah. Anyway, so during the first song, you just see people heaving and hovering. And yeah, a big yellow jacket guy, it wasn't the guy who did the MTV, it was this big guy, comes on the stage. He starts talking, and he's like telling him, "We need to get this done." And you can see a couple of the head of security and Jason McNeil, the promoter, who thinks Jason stands for Jesus Christ. Yeah, I'm the Virgin Mary, bitch. Watch out. Anyway, so we're watching this, and yeah, so they stop after the first song. Brian's talking, and like I said, this is the link I'm going to post to the audio here on YouTube. that Brian is telling everybody to please back up, give everybody space, don't surge forward. He's telling them, don't do this. They're handling it the best that they could at that moment in time, given, you know, what little knowledge we all had of the consequences of those 900 GA tickets over fire code. And the consequences were just about to happen. Because during the second song, like I said, the dam broke. It wasn't even a minute into the first song, or the second song. And you could see these huge, every big security guard they had. Like, you could see them in between the songs on their walkie-talkies. Get everybody down here. We need everybody between the stage and the front row. So they're holding these gates back the best they could. I mean, there were guys with their backs up against them. And one guy just buckled in half because it was kind of the center of the stage where it all just gave way. The gates just went into a V, and that was it. It was just like a sea of people just waterfalling onto each other. Like I said, they were already pulling people out left and right. So at the bottom of the stairs was a bunch of kids. And at every concert, there's one, maybe two ambulances, usually one, just in case anything happens, because there's always something that happens, usually with the crowd. These poor EMTs, there was one and two, and another one came along pretty quickly. So they're running there was about 7 kids being pulled out that were on the ground that were already passed out. How many of them were the kids that died? I don't know. Because we sat there and we watched these kids being passed out. We watched them blue. And when Brian stopped, when that happened during the second song, yeah, just guitars, everything. Like the drummer was still going for a second because he couldn't see what was going on. But it was no 20, 45 minutes, nothing like that. Like I said, it was the first song and into the second song. That's when it happened. And you just see security guards, and they just stop, and everybody just comes to the side of the stage, and the house lights just go on. And like I said, you could see these kids in the dark as it was, because, you know, you still have the lighting and stuff, so you could still see at the bottom of the stage, the side of the stage where the stairs are to come up. But when the lights went on, you realized just how blue and breathless some of these kids were. And some of them just barely conscious, if unconscious altogether. And these poor 2 or 3 EMTs running around, they're trying to get more ambulances there. It was truly insane. I have never seen anything like this before or since, and thank God, because, you know, these 3 kids who lost their lives went out to see a concert and never went home. Their parents said goodbye to them. They'd seen how many concerts? Because back then, Salt Lake City had a really awesome concert family. Like, everybody knew who everybody was, even in the crowd, because the rockers and everybody here were so awesome. Like, half the videos in the 80s you see that are live, like Def Leppard, Motley Crue, same old situation, all these, they're all filmed in Salt Lake City. Bon Jovi. I thought Wayne Isham, the video director for the longest time, was a roadie, because he was in Salt Lake so much with so many different bands. So, yeah, this is what actually happens during the second song. Like that, those yellow steel gates just went into a V, and everything else just sort of fell. And all these bodies are being pulled out. And, you know, the band's on the stage. There was a security guard that came up, was like, get the band to stop playing when it first happened, and grabbed Danny. And she's like, I don't know what to do. I'm just a groupie. And that's true, we couldn't do anything. So finally the band, you know, not finally, but the house lights get turned on. The band has to go back and discuss what's going to happen. Like the production manager, tour manager, the band, the local promoter, the police, all these people went back and to discuss whether the show was going to go on this evening or not. One of those kids died at the arena that night, and I'm pretty sure it was one of the kids at the bottom of the stairs right there. 2 of them died a couple days later because their families had to pull the plugs because they were brain dead, lack of oxygen. And I believe that's what all of them died from, was that lack of oxygen of being squished up against that rail, which is exactly why there's fire code standards. A lot of people don't realize there's a whole business, insurance, liability side to a concert. This is the reality of rock and roll. But so yeah, the band went back, and I believe in my heart that they did the right thing by playing the rest of the show, because so many people out of, there's 15,000 people in this arena tonight, about 200 of them maybe, and 100 of them were us, the band and crew, knew what had really happened. So if ACDC would have tried to not play the show that night, it would have gotten way worse. There would have been riots. There would have been all kinds of hell going on downtown, in the arena, everything. So in my opinion, ACDC 100% did the right thing by not playing, continuing the show. But what they did, no lights. The lighting guy's job was easy that night because they kept all the house lights on. They didn't even turn down the house lights for the rest of the show. There was no cannons, how the cannons always come out, and for those about to rock, and then they spew out the money. None of that. This was taken from the side of the stage. A roadie gave me this. So this is the only dollar bill from that show. Because what they usually did, the pyro, the lights, none of that happened. They just went up there, got on a stage with every house light on, and just rocked the arena. And I give them credit, because that must have been so hard for them emotionally, mentally, because we didn't know at that point in time. Nobody knew really if those kids had died or not. So ACDC got up there and had the cojones to make it through. And God bless them for doing that, because it must have been really hard. I mean, I know it was hard, because in between songs, like when Cliff would switch and, they'd come up, any words on, no word yet, no word yet, it was on their mind, and you could see, and they're trying their best to have that rock star facade on for the rest of the crowd. So, yeah, but it was still, the best show that they could have done. It really was. And I give them credit, like I said, where credit is due, because that was a tough decision and a tough show to play. So after the show, we were saying, hey ladies, you're going to go with these two guys on the bus, go smoke a joint. We need to have a band meeting, blah, blah. Of course you do. Yeah. Groupies aren't going to be hanging around for that, because that's some serious business that, So, the band had the meeting. Me, Danny, and Kim all go out to the bus with the two roadies. We're smoking a joint. And it was not your usual after show. Woohoo! We're going to party after the show. The band's staying the night. We're going to have a good night. No, it was no gearing up for the rest of the evening for more sex, drugs, and rock and roll. It was dead silent. We all just sat on the back lounge of that bus, just smoking a joint, wondering what the fuck was going on. And we found out when Jake and Cliff and everybody else came, looking for Danny and Kim and I, and found us on the back of the bus. Cliff sat down, and you could tell I mean, he's pale enough for an English guy, but believe it or not, he went paler. So what about the kids? Yeah, they died. And I'm not even sure, I think the two were pronounced brain dead. The other two that, the parents took a couple days, which I understand. Their family probably wanted to say goodbye to them. And that gave them some peace of mind, because what a fucking shocker, right? So, yeah, that was that. We smoked some joints, gave Cliff a hug, a little peck on the cheek, because romance was not swelling in the air anymore because of the heaving that had gone on in the night, and we went home. Later, the families, as of course, took legal action against the band, and the local promoter, and everybody else, and they all settled out of court. It was asked if we were going to testify, and the decision was made that absolutely not, because we are the local groupies, and this and this and that. And we had also said something that night about those 900 GA tickets over fire code. Locally in Salt Lake City, it was very well known about the groupie situation and who was who around that town, around this town. I mean, they built the Delta Center where the Jazz play. It's now Vivint or whatever. If you ever go there, you can see where they park the buses is now like 50 feet down, because they wanted to keep the groupies away from there. First of all, they're at the hotel the night before. Second of all, we can learn how to rappel down those walls. You just sit on that wall, and one of those musicians or roadies sees you. They're like, "Hey, go get that girl." You're like, "Hey." Didn't make a difference. But no, that's really why they built the new arena that way. Not even kidding. So yeah, it was kind of decided that we would not testify because, you know, Mormons being Mormon, the greedy fucktards they are, wouldn't believe the local groupies. And nobody needed to testify anyway because, like I said, they settled out of court. Yep. And I've been around ACDC a few other times, but never with Cliff again because it kind of ruined the mood. Maybe that was what ruined the mood, but like I said, come over to Patreon for that one. And people want to know what Brian did. Brian called me a prostitute when he was doing his interview with Roger Daltrey on his life on the road. I have proven again I will say this because I constantly have to defend myself and I hate it. I'd rather just have a fun story time. But I am not a prostitute, never have been, have no intentions to be, and I've proven this all legally on several occasions, including with Roger Daltrey himself, which, Brian, you should have asked your other Shire-dwelling mouth jockey of a friend all about that. So, like I said, I protected the band and the book by placing the 900 general admission tickets solely on the local promoter, when in reality, everybody, the band and the promoter, they were all at fault. So, there you go, guys. I know, such a thrilling vlog today. Sex, drugs, rock and roll doesn't always have a happy ending, does it? Ask those chicks from the 70s. Ha! Yeah, you want to talk shit about me, Les Pars? You want to call me a liar? Yeah, I got your number. Anyway, so there you go. There was the night, the real reality from someone who had a bird's eye view, standing on the side of that stage, knowing what was going on in the production room, and literally all around that stage. That's the real story right there. And this is why, after this, a lot of arenas around the United States and the world banned general admission. So, not all of them did. I mean, I know Salt Lake City still has them, but there's a hell of a lot more fire marshals and making sure standards are being met on the scene now than there used to be. It's really sad because, like I said, those kids just went out for a night like all of us do, to enjoy some rock and roll. And they went to rock and roll heaven. So, alright guys, if you want to hear more of these kinds of stories, because like I said, my stories aren't all sex, drugs, and rock and roll. Yes, it involves it, but like I always say, it's what in between is the real meat and potatoes. And this is the in between right here for this story. So, it was sad. It's to this day, I can still picture it like it's happening right here, right now. Worst concert I've ever seen. No, no, it wasn't actually, believe it or not. But like I said, I give credit to the guys in ACDC for trying to control anything more happening. Because no other kids were pulled out the rest of the night. No heaving barriers, nothing. Like the kids just enjoyed the show. The crowd, everybody just enjoyed the show and rocked out and left as happy as can be. So, alright, cheers big ears. And you guys, if you are enjoying the stories, my analytics tell me that only 35% of the people watching me right now are subscribed. So please subscribe, get me to 1,000 so I can be monetized. This is how I make my living. So subscribe, 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 because these stories are only the tip of the iceberg. I have 30 years of rock and roll, and half of this stuff is not in the book. So subscribe and join me here another time on Cocktails and Rocktails, folks. Hit the bell, hit the like button. Have a great day. Bye, guys.